Yes, hello. Welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast for round 4 of the NRL season for 2026. This is the edition of team lists for round 4. Let's go through the Thursday night game between the Manly Sea Eagles and the Sydney Roosters at 8 o'clock at 4 Pines Park. It's going to be a good game, this one. At fullback for Manly, Tom Trbojevic. The wings, Jason Saab and Lehigh Hopewadi. The centres, Tolu Kola and Ruben Garrick. In the halves, Luke Brooks, Jamal Fogarty. Up front, Taniela Paseka, Jake Simpkin and Kobe Hetherington. Second rowers, Haumole Olakau'atu, Ben Trbojevic at 12 and locking the scrum as Jake Trbojevic. On the bench, Brandon Wakeham. Corey Waddell, Ethan Bullimore and Paul Bryan at 17. Simeone Laffey at 18, 19 Josh Fellerty, 20 Joey Walsh, 21 Clayton Faulolo. And that is the Manly side. For the Roosters, at fullback, James Tedesco. The two wingers, Daniel Tupou and Mark Nawaqanitawase. In the centres, Billy Smith and Robert Toya. The halves, Daly Cherry Evans and Sam Walker. Up front, Nafahu White, Lindsay Collins. And the hooker is, of course, Reece Robson, who made his return back to play his first game in Roosters colours in an unfortunate loss to the Penrith Panthers last week. The second rowers, Angus Crichton, Siwa Wong and Egan Butcher at lock again. Victor Radley, of course, still suspended. On the bench, Connor Watson at 14, Blake Steep at 15, 16 Nat Butcher and 17 Celesi Feketi. The reserves are Cody Ramsey at 18, Hugo Savala at 19, 20 Benaya Iolu, 21 Tom Rodwell and 22 Taylor Lasalu. And that is the Roosters lineup there. Now let's go to the second game of the round. This is in Auckland at Go Media Stadium between the New Zealand Warriors and the West Tigers. The Warriors side lines up such as this. At fullback, Shans Nickel Clockstud. The two wingers, Dallin Watene Zelazniak and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who will be leaving the Warriors at the end of the year, I believe. He will be quitting the club and will be going to rugby union, I believe, at this moment. Adam Pompey in the centres alongside Ali Leatua. The halves, Luke Metcalf making his return since round 17 last year up at Brisbane. Great to see him back for the Warriors, and great to see him named in the 6 as Tanner Boyd retaining his spot in the 7, being the best halfback in the opening 3 rounds, in my opinion, in the 7. 8, James Fisher-Harris. 9, Wade Egan. 10, Jackson Ford. I love Jackson Ford retaining his spot as a starting front rower with Leka Halasima back into the edge forward position. Jacob Laban, the other second rower, and 13, Aaron Clark, who in my opinion is in the top 3 lock forwards of the game at the moment as it stands. 14, Sam Healy. 15, Mitch Barnett. 16, Dimitri Valmaga, and 17, Tanner Stoward-Smith. 18, Marata Niokore. Chanel Harris-Tavita at 20. 21, Tane Tuapiki. 22, Alofa Khan Pereira, who they picked up from the Titans. And 23, Eddie Iarima Tuavava. So that is the Warriors lineup at fullback for the Tigers now. We go Jareem Buller, the two wingers, Jarrell Skelton and Luke Laualili, who I think the Perth Bears have picked up. Taruva in the centres, not on the wing. So Taruva in the centres alongside Haimasi Makasini at number 4, Jock Madden at 6, and Adam Dewey at 7. Not sure if Adam Dewey will play in this game. He's been named, but whether or not he'll actually play, I'm not too sure, considering he couldn't walk off the field last week. So hopefully he plays for Tigers fans' sakes. Up front, Terrell May, hooker Apisai Coruscant and Whenua Pole at 10. The edges, Samuel Fainu, Kai Pearce-Paw and 13, Alex Twell. On the bench, Tristan Hope, Sione Fainu, Royce Hunt and Alex Seyfarth. And the reserve, of course, 6-man bench, I should say. I keep getting mixed up with that. Bunty Afoa at 18 and Failetino Tavana at 19. The reserves, Tony Suka at 20, 21, Latu Fainu. So the fact that he's named on the reserves could easily mean that he could end up replacing Adam Dewey at halfback, a young gun, Latu Fainu. Patrick Herbert at 22. I'm just not convinced that Adam Dewey will play in this game. So going to be interesting to see what the Tigers do before kickoff there. The following game on Friday Night Football, 8 o'clock, is between the Broncos and who we got? The Dolphins at Suncorp Stadium. Battle of Brisbane. At fullback, Reece Walsh. The two wingers, Josiah Karapani and Grant Anderson. The centres, Tony Staggs and Dean Mariner. The halves are Ezra Mann, Adam Reynolds. Up front, Corey Jensen, Wilson, Corey Pakes at 9, and Xavier Willison at number 10. 11, Brendan Piakura. Jordan Ricky, what a game he had last week against Melbourne with a 2-try performance in Melbourne. And 13, Patrick Carrigan. 14, Ben Hunt. 15, Ben Tolte. 16, Albix Tawa, who they bought from the Dolphins last year as an edge forward. And Gemet Shibasaki at 17, 18 Jaden Hunt, 19 Blake Moser, and the reserves Jesse Arthurs at 20, 21 Thomas Duffy, and Varma Samu at 22. So interesting to note in this game, obviously the big out there is Payne Haas, but really interested to see Xavier Willison get a start at front row, and he's obviously a phenomenal young front rower, can also play on the edge as well. So bit of versatility there. I think that the Broncos could win this game. But I'm looking at the Dolphins lineup now. Let's go through it because they're going to be tough to beat in this game as well. Hamasai Tabuai-Fidow at fullback, the wingers Jermaine Asako and Selwyn Cobbo, and the centres Jake Averillo and Herbie Farnworth, and the halves Cody Nikorima and Isaiah Katoa. Up front, Tom Gilbert. 9, Max Plath. What a player Max Plath is. Fuck, I wish Manly would sign him one day. 10, Felice Kafusi. 11, Connolly Lemuelu. Kulikefu Finuaki at 12, and 13, Morgan Knowles. 14, Brad Schneider. 15, Thomas Flegler. 16, Oren Keeley. 17, Ray Stone. 18, Trey Fuller. 19, Francis Molo. The reserves 20, Lewis Simons. Tavita Nafahu at 21, and Brian Hon Yu at 22. So when I go through the team lists, just remember that with the new rules, so 14 to 19, you've got your bench there, but the coaches can only select 4 of the 6 players with a rotation of 8, I think, with 8 interchanges. I'm pretty sure that still stands. So they can only use 4 of the 6. So it just allows teams to have more coverage for HIAs, outside backs going down, whatnot. So Super Saturday at 3 o'clock, the first game between the Bulldogs and the Newcastle Knights. Fullback for the Bulldogs, Connor Tracy. The 2 wingers, Jacob Carraz and Marcelo Montoya. Inari Tuala in the centres, who I hope starts, with Bronson Sherry, of course, named in the Senate, named on the reserves this week. 4, Stephen Crichton. 6, Matt Burton. 7, Lachlan Galvin. 8, Max King. 9, Bailey Hayward. 10, Satili Tupanua. Sam Hughes is out in this game, so Satili Tupanua will play his first game in first grade, starting at front row. Viliami Kikau, Jacob Preston in the edge forwards, and locking the scrum is Jamin Salmon. Their bench, Kurt Mann, Josh Curran, Lipoi Hopoi, apologies there, and Sean O'Sullivan. Number 17 will be great to see him play his first grade game. He's played many first grade games before, but of course his first Bulldogs game in the first grade level. Jonathan Sewer at 19, and 20, Fletcher Baker. 21, Logan Spinks. 22, Jack Underhill. And there we go, 23, Bronson Sherry. Will be interesting to see if Bronson Sherry gets a crack. I doubt he will, to be honest, but the fact he's been named in the 23 jersey would suggest that they're probably thinking about it, to be completely honest. But with what Inari Tuala did in defence last week against the Canberra Raiders, I think he deserves to retain his spot in the centres. Let's go to the Newcastle Knights. Fletcher Hunt at fullback, the 2 wingers, Dominic Young and Greg Marzu. The centres, Dane Gagai and Bradman Best. The halves, Fletcher Sharp and Sanders Smith, of course. Kalen Ponga and Dylan Brown still injured for 4 to 6 weeks. So big losses there, and they were surely missed last week against the Warriors. Jacob Saifuti at 8, 9, Phoenix Crossland. 10, Tyson Frizzell. Second row is Dylan Lucas, Jermaine McEwen and Matthew Croker at lock. 14, Thomas Kant. Yes, he can. Pasami Solo. There we go, another dad joke. Pasami Solo at 15, 16, Cody Hopwood. 17, Francis Manu Elu, and 18, Tyson Gamble. 19, Harrison Graham, and the reserves are Elijah Lemuoa. Moana, I should say. 21, James Schiller. 22, Wilson DeCourcy. And that is Newcastle. The following game on Super Saturday is the Penrith Panthers and the Parramatta Eels. This is 5:30 p.m. at CommBank Stadium. Penrith, fuck me, have they already won the comp? In my opinion, possibly, most likely. Dylan Edwards at fullback, the 2 wingers, Thomas Jenkins and Brian To'o, the centres, Paul Alamotti and Casey McLean, the halves, Blaze Talangi, Nathan Cleary. Up front, Moses Leota, Mitch Kenny at 9 and 10, Lindsay Smith. The second rowers are Isaiah Papali'i, Liam Martin at 12 and 13, Isaiah Yeo. On the bench, Jack Cogger at 14, Billy Phillips at 15, 16 Scott Sorensen and 17 Luke Garner, 18 Isaac Targo, 19 Freddie Lussick, Kalani going at 20, 21 Jack Cole and 22 Jackson Edgar. The Eels team, Isaiah Iongi at fullback with the wingers Bailey Simonson and Josh Adokar. The centres for Parramatta, Brian Kelly comes back into that centre position and Sean Russell in the number 4. 6, Jonah Pezzett. 7, Mitchell Moses. 8, Jack Williams. 9, Riley Smith. 10, Junior Polo. Kelma Talangi at 12. 11, 12, Katoni Katoga, and 13, Dylan Walker. 14, Talon De Silva, who was excellent last week against the Dragons at Combank Stadium. Sam Tuavati at 15. Matt Dury was fantastic again last week too. At 16 and 17, Luca Moretti. Charlie Geimer at 18, 19, Joash Papali'i. At 19, 20, Jack DeBellin, 21, Tincum Brown, and 22, Araz Nanva. So the big talking points there is Jack DeBellin unlikely to get a crack again this week. I was surprised he didn't play last week against his old club. Even though Parramatta won, I reckon they would have been better off with him playing as well. I thought, him against his old club, surely you chuck him in. And Jermaine Hopgood, unfortunately, did his ACL last week. He will be out for the season, and really depressing scenes in the sheds after the game where you see Jermaine Hopgood break down, realising that his season is over. So thoughts and prayers for anyone that gets injured in the NRL, but especially this part of the year. It must be really tough for season-ending injury players. So good luck to him. I did my ACL years ago, and the recovery is not fun. So I really feel sorry for anybody that has to go through that. The last game on Super Saturdays between the North Queensland Cowboys and the Melbourne Storm, 7:35 p.m. At Queensland Country Bank Stadium, which is, of course, the Townsville home stadium. At fullback, Scott Drinkwater. The wingers, Braden Burns and Murray Talangi. The centres, Jackson Purdue and Zach Labour. The halves, Jake Clifford. And 7, Tom Dearden and captain. 8, Cohen Hess. 9, Reid Marnie. 10, Jason Tamalolo. 11, Helam Lukey. 12, Sam McIntyre. 13, Ruben Cotter. 14, Sonny Luke. 5, Guy O'Donnell. 16, Griffin Neem. 17, Harrison Edwards. 18, Thomas McKaylee. 19, Liam Sutton. 20, Caden Lars, who of course is Tom Leroy Lars' son. 21, Matthew Lodge, and Robert Derby in the 22 jersey. So obviously, the big talking point there is Jeremiah Nanai is still not back. He's missed the opening 3 weeks of the season so far. I think they have missed him in attack, not necessarily in defence, but in saying that, let's see how he comes back into the side. But I want to see him come back. I think he's due to come back in a couple of weeks. From a report I saw a few weeks ago. So I think that was it from Code Sports? I may have read that. I think it was. So no, I hope he comes back, Jeremiah Nanai, very soon. I think they need him. Even though they won last week against the Gold Coast Titans, I still thought it was a pretty poor quality game at certain times through the game. So I think this is a big game for the Cowboys. Look at the Melbourne Storm now at fullback, Suafalago, 2 wingers, Will Warbrick and Nick Meaney. On the wings, the centres, Jack Howarth and Moses Leo, and the halves, Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes. Up front, Stefano Utukaramanu, 9, Harry Grant, and 10, Josh King. The second row is Joe Chan and Alec McDonald, and 13, Trent Loiero. On the bench, 14, Tyron Wishart, 15, Cooper Clark, 16, Tui Kamakamika, and 17, Davy Mawali. The reserves are, we got Jack Hetherington on the bench alongside Sualagi Tawamalatu Brown, and the reserves are Lazarus Vay Lepu, Manaya Waitari, and Trent Talau in the 22. The final game of the round is, the second last game of the round, I should say. That was the final game on Saturday night. The first game on Sunday afternoon is at Canberra Stadium, GIO Stadium, at 4:05 p.m. between the Raiders and the Sharks. Let's go through the lineups now. At fullback, KO Weeks. The 2 wingers, local Manly Junior, Savelio Tamale. Don't know if he actually played in the reserve. Harold Matts for Manly. I would assume so. I know he's a Chroma Kingfisher's boy. I'd love Manly to pick him up one day. Local junior there. So KO Weeks fullback, Savelio Tamalo on the wing, Xavier Savage on the other wing, Simeon Sasangi. I reckon that's his spot now. I reckon he's just done enough over the last 3 weeks to suggest that defensively they're a better side on that edge. Sebastian Chris in the other centre, number 4 in the halves, Ethan Strange, Ethan Sanders. Up front, Morgan Smithies, Joe Tarpany at 10, and the hooker is Tom Starling. The second row is Hudson Young, Noah Martin at 12. 13, Corey Horsburgh. Speaking about someone that's kept their position, I think Noah Martin will just stay as the number 12 now. So he's done a great job. 14, Jaden Brayley. 15, Zach Hoskin. 16, Ata Mariota and Joseph Roddy in the 17 jersey. 18 is Dane Laurie. 19 is Jed Stewart. And on the reserves, 20, Owen Paddy. Will be interesting to see if he gets a crack in first grade again soon to play his first game. He hasn't played a game yet in the NRL in the opening 3 weeks. So it will be great to see him get into the side when his opportunity presents itself. Matthew Tomoko in 21, 22, the young fullback Chevy Stewart. For the Sharks at fullback, Will Kennedy. The wings, Sione Katoa and Sam Stone Street. The centres, Jesse Ramian and KL Iro. The halves, Braden Trindle, Nico Hines. Up front, Adam Fanua Blake. 9, Blake Brayley. And 10, Tom Hazelton. The second rowers, Billy Burns, Teague Wilton and Jesse Colhoun. And the bench, Sifa Talakai, Toby Rudolph, Oregon Kafusi, and Braden Hamlin-Ueli at 17. Hohepa Puru at 18, 19, Tuki Hau Tapaha. Tapuha, I should say. Chris Vailea at 20. Jaden Beryl at 21. The young, he's 28 years old, I think. He's been around New South Wales Cup for a while, but he is a hooker. 22, Mawene Hiroti, who I think is signed with the Gold Coast Titans, I'm pretty sure. Now, final game of the round between the Dragons and the Titans. This is at Cbus Super Stadium, the Gold Coast home ground. Titans and Dragons yet to get a win season in season 2026. So it will be interesting to see how they go in this game, to see who will get their first win of the season. At fullback, Keanu Kinney, the two wingers, Cialetti Faimani and Philip Sammy on the other sting. The centres, Jojo Fafita and Max Fingai. The halves, AJ Brimson and Jaden Campbell at 7. 8, Mo Fodawaker. 9, Sam Verrills and Tino at 10. Big Tino as captain as well. The second rowers, Arama Howe, Bo Firma, and locking the scrum is Chris Randall. 14, Curtis Moran was very impressive off the bench last week. Tukimihia Simpkins at 15. 16, Clace Haas. 17, Cooper Bai. 18, Lachlan Ilias. 19, Josh Patson in the reserves. Jalen DeGroot, Oliver Pascoe, and Jet Liu. The Dragons side at fullback, Clinton Gutherson. The wingers, Christian Tuapolotu and Setu 2. The centres, Moses Sully, Valentine Holmes. The halves, Kyle Flanagan, Daniel Atkinson. 8, Emre Gula. 9, Damien Cook. 10, Blake Laurie. 11, Luciano Leilua. 12, Jaden Sewer. 13, Hamish Stewart. 14, Jacob Little. What do we got here? Jacob Little, Hamo Saleh at 15, Jacob Halagahu at 16, Loco Junior Pacifica Tonga at 17. Great to see him named in the 17. 18, Josh Kerr. 19, Hayden Buchanan. In the reserves, 20, Tyrell Sloan. Ryan Hutchinson at 21, and Licken King Tongier, the young half that played plenty of halfback last year for the Dragons. So there you go. That's the Dragons. Obviously, Ryan Couchman is the big talking point out of that team list. He will be unavailable for 4 weeks after that hip drop tackle on Jermaine Hopgood, which ended up ending his season with the ACL. So, yeah, look, I think it was a full-on accident, in my opinion, but I can understand where, there needs to be a punishment, even though accidents happen. Jermaine Hopgood is a big loss for Parramatta and their season, so I don't mind Ryan Couchman taking a month off. And look, the good thing about the Dragons too, they've been close in every game, but I believe this is a game they certainly can win. Going to be interesting to see what they can come up with in this game. So that is team list. It's today, Wednesday. Of course, I do the reviews on round reviews Tuesdays. I keep thinking team list Tuesday, but I do the team lists on Wednesdays because there is a lot of difference that can happen between a Tuesday and Wednesday in terms of lineups. A lot of team players can come in and out within 24 hours. So I like to do the team lists on Wednesdays and then the round previews on Thursdays. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please follow me on Spotify or subscribe to the YouTube channel if you enjoy watching the podcast. I really appreciate everybody and their support. I hope you enjoy the Rugby League Forecast podcast. Thanks very much. And that is the team lists for round 4 of the National Rugby League.